Hi everyone, I'm Shyam from Pragyan Technologies. In this video, I'm going to show you initial configuration of Cisco iOS. So let's get started. And you can see that I have connected two routers and a PC. So I'm going to enter R1, and yes, I'm in the R1 router. And before I start configuring, let's see the iOS command modes. So iOS has three modes: user mode, which I am currently in, where you can see this greater than symbol, which indicates that you are in user mode, and the other two modes, privilege mode and configuration mode. So there are 16 privilege levels starting from 0 to 15 to access various commands on Cisco iOS. So when you enter user mode, you are at privilege level 1, and when you go to privilege mode, you move up to level 15. So as I am in this routers user mode, there are three methods to access routers user mode. One is by using router's console port, using a console cable, or an aux port, or using telnet. So here in user mode, you can type harmless commands, as it won't hurt the router's operations. But only a limited commands are available in user mode. To know which are the commands available in user mode, you can always seek help by putting question mark. And you can see that there are a very limited commands which you can run in this mode. So we'll go to our next mode, which is privilege mode. So I'll type enable to go to privilege mode, and we are in privilege mode now. You can see the symbol has been changed to hash, which indicates that you are in privilege mode. So you can always go back to user mode by typing disable. So this takes you to user mode again. So let's go back to our privilege mode and see which are the commands available here. So you can see that compared to user mode, we have a lot of commands which we can run in privilege mode. This mode actually allows users to view all configuration on the router and allow to change some less important configuration. But there are few commands which work both on user and privilege mode. So if you want to see the running configuration of this router, you can always type show running config, which will show you the current configuration of the router. So you can see a hostname router, which is actually the default, which means if you don't configure any hostname manually, router is going to take this as by default. And you can see the interfaces which are not configured yet, no IP address, and you can see your console line, aux line, and VTY lines which are not configured. So now let's go to our next mode, which is global configuration mode. To go to global config mode, you need to type configure terminal, which will take you to global configuration mode. This is the root access privilege level 15 mode, where you have the root access to the router. You can do configuration, you can change iOS version, you can take backups, you can backup your configuration, you can restore, and a lot more things you can do in global configuration mode. So also there are several sub modes like interface mode, which is used to configure details about a specific router interface, such as an IP address. You can see your interface configuration and status by typing show IP interface brief. So you have to go to your privilege mode, and you can type show IP interface brief, which will show you the interface status. You can see that we have two fast recurrent interfaces, fast recurrent 0/0 and fast recurrent 0/1, and there is no IP address configured, and the method is sunset, and status is down. So we have other sub modes like line configuration mode. That's for configuring your console or VTY or aux lines. So show lines will show you which are the lines available in your router, and you can see that you have the console line, you have the aux line, and we have 5 VTY lines. Now let's configure the hostname for this router. As we can see, still the hostname is in default mode, so we'll change it. We'll go to config global configuration mode by typing configure terminal, and we can change the host name of the router by typing hostname and give the preferred name. So I'll type here R1. Now you can see that the host name has been changed to R1. Now for to provide an additional layer of security, let's configure some passwords for privilege mode and for our user mode. So particularly for passwords that cross the network, you can either use enable password or enable secret. But recommended is enable secret as it uses an improved encryption algorithm. Use the enable password command only if you boot an older image of the Cisco IO software, or if you boot older boot ROMs that do not recognize enable secret command. So let's see the difference in enable password and enable secret. So we will start with enable password command. So I'll type enable password and I'll give a password Cisco, which is easy to remember, but this is only good for a learning purpose. If you are in real production environment, this is a very bad password. So enable password Cisco. Let's verify our password first. So let's go out of our privilege mode, and again let's try to enter the privilege mode, and here it is prompting for the password. Let's type the password Cisco, and yes, we are in privilege mode now. Now let's see how we can see the password which we have set, which is Cisco. Let's go to our, let's see our running configuration. So let's type show running config, and you can see that the password which we have given Cisco, which we can see in clear text, which actually is not secured. So let's remove that by typing no enable password, which will remove that enable password. Now let's try our enable secret command, which is recommended. Enable secret and give the same password Cisco. Now let's check our configuration, show running config, and you can see that it is visible in an encrypted format. So here you can see a combination of letters, numbers, symbols, which is really kind of secured. So now let's see the console's exec timeout command. By default, the privilege exec command interpreter wait 10 minutes to detect user input before timing out. So I can change that. So let's go to our line console 0 to configure our console port. So configure, first we need to go to our global configuration mode. So let's enter the line console 0, line console port, and we can also set a password for our user mode here, so that as soon as you enter your router, it will prompt for a password. So just let's go ahead and configure a password first. So login, type login, and you can see that login is disabled on line 0 until the password is set. So let's set the password. So I'll give the password Cisco, and also let's see our exec timeout. How can we change that idle timeout? Exec timeout. Here you can see that we have to mention a value in minutes. So by default, as I told, it's 10 minutes. I'll change it to 5. And now let's verify our user mode password as well. It got applied. So get out of the router. Now let's try to enter the router, and you can see that to access our user mode, it's prompting for a password, and the password I have given is Cisco. Let's type that, and yes, you are in the user mode. From that, let's try to get into our privilege mode, and you can see that here also we have already configured a password. So let's give that password. Yes, we are in privilege mode now. Now let's go ahead and configure our fast Ethernet interfaces. So let's have a look into a topology again. So you can see that fast Ethernet 0/1, and as per the topology, it is directly connected to 2.0 network, and the IP address supposed to configure is 2.1. So let's go ahead and configure that. So first of all, we need to go to global configuration mode, config terminal, and let's go to that interface fast Ethernet 0/1. we need to type interface first iterant 0/1, and this is, as I earlier mentioned, the another sub mode called as interface mode, where we can configure the IP address. So let's go ahead and configure IP address, and as per the diagram it should be 2.1, and if we hit enter here it shows that incomplete command. So whenever you see incomplete command, you can always seek help, and you can see that we need to mention the subnet mask as well. Since this is a class C address and I'm using the classful network, I'm going to give the default subnet mask, which is 255.255.255.0, and I also need to turn on my interface up, because by default router interfaces will be down, as we already saw that our router interface status is down. So to turn it up, let's type a command no shutdown, and as soon as I enter that command, you can see that interface fast iterant 0/1 change state to up. So these are actually system generated log messages, which any changes they will log it. Now let's go ahead and configure our fast iterant 0/0 interface in this router, and you can see as per the topology that should be connected to 1.0 subnet, and the IP address supposed to configure in that interface is 1.1. So let's go ahead and configure that as well. Interface fast iterant 0/0, and let's configure the IP the way we have configured for 0/1. It's 1.1, and give the subnet mask as well 255.0, and give the no shut command to turn on our interface. So let's verify our fast Ethernet configuration, interface configuration. Let's type the command show IP interface brief, which will show you the interface status, and yes, we can see that the IP addresses we just configured for the interfaces, and the status is up. But still we can see that for fast Ethernet 0/1 status is up, but the protocol is down. That's because we have to configure this R2 as well. But before we get inside the R2, we'll configure our telnet port as well, so that we can try telnetting to this router, which is another method to access a router's user mode. So let's configure our VTY port. So we need to type line VTY 04. This 04 indicates that we have 5 VTY lines available in this router 0 to 4. So let's type login, and you can see that it's asking for a password, since login is disabled on all those 5 lines until the password is set. So let's type the password Cisco. I'm preferring Cisco here, since it's easy to remember. But in real networks you don't use such simple passwords, as that's not secured. So let's come out of our VTY port. Since we have configured our line VTY 04, line VTY port, and we have also configured our console port as well. Now we can verify our configuration, running configuration, by typing show running config. So you can see that we have enable secret password, and now we can see that our interfaces are configured with IP addresses, and we have configured our console port, we have configured our VTY port, we have also an aux port, which we can configure the way we have configured telnet and the VTY WAN console lines. Aux ports are actually used to connect to a modem, and that's an alternate option to get an access to the router as well. So that's optional. Now we can also see that here our console and VTY passwords, you can see that still they are not encrypted in any way. They are clearly shown in clear text and passwords. So we can encrypt them using a command called as service password encryption. Now let's see how we can see that passwords. Now you can see that they are not shown in clear text and text anymore. They are encrypted in some way. Now let's save our configuration, our iOS configuration, by typing copy running config to startup config. Yes, we have saved. You can also use another command called as write, which will also copy your running config. Now let's go ahead and configure our R2. Let's get inside this router. Let's go to the config mode, global configuration mode, and configure the first Ethernet 0/0 interface and give an IP address accordingly. As per the diagram, that first Ethernet 0/0 is connected to 2.0 network subnet, and the IP address supposed to configure is 2.2. So let's go ahead and configure that IP address here. So 2.2 and give the subnet mask 255.255.255.0. Give the no shut command, which will turn your interface up. Now we can see that fast Ethernet 0/1 of our R1 has come up since we have configured the connected routers interface as well. Now let's go ahead and configure an IP address for this PC. It's 192.168.1.2 as per the diagram, and the gateway is supposed to be 1.1. So let's give that input as well. Okay. Now let's check our telnet. Let's verify our telnet configuration, whether we are able to telnet to that router from this PC. As I already mentioned, that's an alternate option. That's another option to access the router. So let's telnet by typing telnet from your command line and give the router's IP. And here it is asking for a password, and we have given the password Cisco. And yes, we are in the user mode of the router. Let's try to enter the privilege mode, and also here it's prompting for a password. And yes, now we are in the router. We can run all the commands in the router. Yes, we can see the running config of the router. Yes, we can also see the version of the router, show version, which not only give you the version but give you a lot more information. It shows what is the version of the iOS version of the router, which is 12.3, and also the flash image. You can see it here where your iOS is stored. That's the flash image, and your configuration registry number 0x2102. You can see your memory, NVRAM. You can see the fast Ethernet interfaces. You can see a lot more information in show version command. And now we know that our VTY, our telnet is working fine. Now let's also verify the connectivity between these two routers. Let's try to ping from this router to that router. Ping 192.168.2.2, and yes, success rate is 80%. And yes, now we can see that the success rate is 100%, which means the connectivity between these two routers is fine. Yeah. So in this video, we have configured our the hostname for the router. We also configured passwords for our user mode and privilege mode, and we used enable secret command to configure the privilege mode password. As I mentioned, this is secured compared to our enable password command. And we also configured our fast Ethernet interfaces. We also saved our configuration. We verified our connectivity between these two routers. So I hope this video has been informative for you, and I would like to thank you for watching.